How long have I been talking for? For goodness, an hour?
Almost an hour.
My God.
Your eyes have got question marks.
That's quite a convoluted point, so I'm not sure if you want to include that.
Am I not smiling enough?
I can't tell you. She was always in trouble.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to have to change the tape.
Hey, you're not taking that.
Yes.
Has it been taken?
What are you doing, all right?
I'm becoming philosophical now, and I was only a tailor.
If you don't know what Google is, I don't. But I said, don't tell them too much about your youth.
There's a lot of hot air coming out of here.
Oh, yeah, how am I going to get home? Going to go to the gym yet?
It's extremely difficult for us to understand just exactly what the lives were like in those days. Because can you just visualise? Let me try and explain to you. Can you just visualise you're sitting in the house and all of a sudden you hear somebody shouting, screaming, down, death to the Eden, death to the Jews. You say, what do you do? How would you react? Straight away you get out of the children and click them to the cellar. Go right down in the cellar and try and get as far away as possible from that. Because they knew that if they were caught, they would be murdered. And this is how, now, when I'm telling you this, is because that was the norm. Remember, that was just the norm. That wasn't something that just occurred. It was the norm. That was life. In the Pale of the settlements, in all these ghetto places, they did not know from one day to another whether or not they're going to live.
I mean, the Cossacks used to come in Poland and just kill anybody in their path. I mean, it was the sort of thing that Hitler did on a big scale, but they did it on a smaller scale. So they had to leave. It's the history of the Jews through the centuries, is it not?
There was this mass emigration into Leeds from Russia and Poland at the turn of the 19th and beginning of the 20th century. Many of the people didn't know they were coming to Leeds. They thought they were en route to America. And they got off the boat in somewhere like Grimsby, perhaps, or Hull.
They all disembarked because they were told to disembark. The ship went away. Dawn came and they found they were in Britain.
My father-in-law was 3 days out sailing and he kept asking them, where's my brother? Are we going to New York? Because he had a brother that was going to New York. Is this New York? He says, I'm awfully sorry, we've made a mistake. We put you on the wrong boat. You're going to England.
Get out, get up and get out. That was your only way you could live. And that's what they did. They took everything that they could and they made their way out. And it was extremely difficult, I've got to show you. They had to travel miles and miles and miles, on foot. Can you visualise that? And then when they got to the coast, they had to get on a boat somehow or some way of doing it. So it's very extremely difficult for us who have been born here to really appreciate just exactly what our parents went through. We have no idea. God forbid, we don't even want to know. We don't even want to know about it either.
Leeds is the first big industrial city that you find in the English-speaking world. It's also, interestingly, a city that's got a tailoring industry, and lots of Jews, and I include my grandfather in that, were involved in the tailoring industry. They understood the tailoring industry. It was their sort of work. And for whatever reasons, maybe the kids were crying, maybe someone had said Leeds is a good place, whatever. Lots of Jews stopped off here.
The majority of them went on to America, but quite a lot of people stayed in Leeds. And we were brought up here. My eldest brother, Avshalom, he was born in Lithuania, and he was brought over as a child.
My mother, Avshalom, brought her father and mother over from Lithuania, from Kovnagabedna, and they lived with us in Skinner Lane. And I remember my Bobby dying in Skinner Lane, and my Zadie came with us to Artillery Street, and he opened a little shul in Manor Street, a little steeple.
So you have in Leeds, by 1910 or 1911, a sizable community that's grown from 1880 to maybe 15,000 Jews, something like that. And a visible community, because they live in the leylands, they live in the area around the city centre. And a community that has all sorts of, I call it frictions, between the Jewish and the non-Jewish world in Leeds.
Well, it's similar to what our occupation, our attitude would be to visitors coming to us. If they looked different, we'd stare at them. If they had different customs, we'd be amazed, and so forth and so on. And the Jewish people wore different clothing. They had different customs, different styles.
And I think it's April 1917, the mob comes in and attacks the Jewish community. And it's unusual because there aren't other attacks in England, certainly, that you can think of where there have been organised attacks on the Jewish community. Sufficiently so that there's a commission after about the riots, shops were damaged, people were hurt.
They were blamed because in the First World War it was considered that the Jews weren't doing enough to support the British war effort. And the reason given was that on Britain's side was Russia. Now, where the Jews escaped from, Russia, persecution in Russia, why should they support the Russians? Why should they support the Tsar, who had instigated pogroms?
Shop windows went in, people were scared, people believed they were being attacked. And the worst thing was, because all the men were in the army, there were no men to defend there were hardly any men to defend the community against the marauders.
In fact, the truth was completely the opposite. A higher proportion of Jewish people volunteered for the British Army than from any other section of the population. So the Jews were patriots.
They felt that they had a responsibility to the country that had given them a home. And they believed, my country, right or wrong, we'll fight. And they did that.